Hello all. So today we'll be talking about electrophilic addition to alkene. This is the last major topic in my portion remaining. So I've divided it into two to three parts. So today we'll do the first part of it, electrophilic addition to alkene. Uh, in this, I've divided this part into five type of reactions which we'll learn. First is your addition of bromine to alkenes. Second is your addition of water to alkenes. Third is your addition of HBr to alkenes in the presence and in the absence of peroxides. Fourth is your halohydrin addition to alkenes. Halohydrin addition is not there in your portion sheet as such, but because it is related, so I've just given you a small note on the same. And the last fifth topic is your dimerization of alkenes. So these are the five types of reactions involved in electrophilic addition of alkenes. There are even more reactions other than these five, like oxymercuration, demercuration, epoxidation. Those we'll do in the subsequent video lectures. So first we'll go to your addition of bromine to alkenes, the first reaction in this chapter. So if you can see here, I've just drawn the basic electrophilic addition of alkene. I've taken a cyclohexene here, cyclohexene, in which I have shown you two reactions. So addition normally takes place via two reactions. By two reactions, I mean by the stereochemical aspects of it. The reactions of addition take place via two methods. One is your anti-addition, another is your syn addition. So if you can see the first reaction here, your cyclohexene is reacting with bromine here directly. The bromine will get added across the double bond. So the double bond is across the two carbons here and here. So the bromine will be attached here. And if you can see here, by anti-addition, you can see here the stereochemical, the configuration of it is one is on a wedge, one is on a dash. So one is coming above the plane, one is going below the plane. So obviously these two are opposite in configuration. That is why it is called as an anti. And obviously along with this product, you'll also get an enantiomer of this product, where if this is wedge, this could be a dash. If this is dash, it could be a wedge. So you'll get a mixture of two products, almost a racemic mixture. So, or a product of enantiomers. So this kind of addition is called as anti-addition, where the configuration of your electrophiles that are being added, here bromine is acting as an electrophile. So the configuration of the electrophile that is being added is opposite to each other. That's why it is called as anti. Another example here I've taken is nothing but your OH group addition of your alkenes. So almost a diol formation here in the presence of KMnO4, an oxidizing agent, and H2O2. So if you can see here, the compound, the OH is acting as an electrophile and it is getting attached across the double bond. But if you can see the configuration here, both are wedge or both could be dash. So either you will get this compound or you will get this compound. And as you can see, this compound is not, these two are not enantiomers to each other. Rather, this is a meso compound. If you remember our chirality centers from last semester, if you can see, if I divide the molecule in half exactly horizontally, what is there on the top is exactly what is there on the bottom. That is how this compound is meso. Same goes with here. If I divide the molecule exactly in half, what is there on the top is on the bottom. So again, a meso compound. This kind of addition is called as syn addition. Syn meaning both the configurations of the electrophiles on both the carbons will be same. So this is anti-addition, this is syn addition. Most of your reactions in this chapter are nothing but anti-additions. So most of your electrophilic addition to alkene takes place via anti-addition. Some do undergo syn addition, but most of them undergo anti-addition. So first reaction out of the five that we are going to see, the first reaction we'll see is addition of bromine to alkene. Addition of bromine to alkene. So here I have taken a alkene here. This is nothing but a basic 2-butane alkene, and this is your Br2 structure here, bromine. So this pi bond on this 2-butane is electron rich. This electron rich, when alkene comes closer to your Br2 in solution, this double bond, the electron cloud on this pi bond is going to repel the electrons around one of the bromine atoms, due to which the other bromine atom is going to get polarized, and it is going to take both the bonding electrons with itself to form a Br minus. In that process, what will be left is Br plus. Both these bonding electrons of Br are taken by one bromine towards itself, forming this Br minus, and another Br is left with a positive charge that is now going to act as your electrophile. This happens because of the repulsion between the pi cloud, the electron cloud here, and the electrons around your bromine atom. So now your electrophile is almost generated. Now this electrophile, this Br plus here that is formed, is going to attack on your double bonded carbon. As you can see, there are two carbons across which the double bond is present. So obviously this bromine, which is now acting as a electrophile, can attack on either of the carbons. Either it can attack on this carbon. If it attacks on this carbon, the Br is formed here. The other carbon will take a positive charge. If this bromine is attacking on this carbon now has a bromine, and the other carbon will now develop a positive charge. So this bromine will not always be on the same carbon. This bromine is also being so electronegative, is also attracted to this positive charge and giving you this kind of structure again. This bromine is again attracted to this positive charge and gives you this kind of structure again. So these two structures are keep on resonating between each other. They keep on shifting. That is why we eventually draw a structure called as bromonium ion. Bromonium ion meaning one bromine is shared between those two carbons between which a double bond was present. The bromine obviously will now take a positive charge since all its electrons have been donated for the bond formation, and still these carbons, the two carbons where the double bond was present, will have a partial positive charge. So the first step in addition of bromine to alkene is your bromonium ion formation. Pay attention here, still we have only added one bromine atom. The other bromine atom is still left. Now what happens in the second step is the second bromine atom, the Br minus that was formed earlier, is now going to attack. The issue here is either it can attack from the top here or it can attack from the bottom. It cannot attack from the bottom because of the bromine already that has been present here. So obviously the bromine will attack from the top. It can either attack this carbon or either it can attack this carbon, whichever carbon it can attack, leading to a formation of an anti-addition. I have not shown here the configuration, but if this is a wedge, this will be a dash. If this is a dash, this will be a wedge. So if your Br was in the bottom here, bottom of the page, your Br minus is going to attack from the top of the page. That is how you are going to get an anti-addition that is being formed here. Another same example, addition of bromine to alkenes, have taken a cyclohexene. Same concept, this pi electron cloud is going to repel your electron cloud across the bromine, due to which the bonded electrons are going to shift on one bromine atom. The other bromine atom now can act as an electrophile, is going to attack this double bonded carbons to form a bromonium ion, just like before, bromonium ion. This bromonium ion will now be attacked by the other bromine negative ion that is being present here, that is being formed, and leading to a formation of an anti-addition dibromo product. If you can see, one is wedge, one is dash. Obviously the enantiomer will also be formed, so the other will be dash and this will be wedge. You will get a racemic mixture of the two enantiomers. Another example I've taken here is, I have taken a substituted cyclohexene here. So if you can see, there is a cyclohexene, but one of the carbon is substituted with a CH3 group. Again, the same thing is going to happen. The same thing meaning this bromine is going to be polarized. The electron cloud is going to repel each other, leading to the formation of bromonium ion. Now, next step is critical. Pay attention here. Now, where will that Br minus attack? If you can see here, this carbon, the one which is highlighted now, if you can see here, there are already three groups attached to it. Three groups already attached to it. Here also it has three groups attached to it, if you can see. So if this bond is broken, the one that is highlighted right now, if this bond is broken, you will get a tertiary carbocation. If this bond is broken, one that is highlighted right now, if this bond is broken, you will get a secondary or a primary carbocation, which will be on this carbon. So obviously as per the carbocation stability, Obviously, a tertiary carbocation is far more stable. That is why this bond is going to break, leading to the formation of a tertiary carbocation being more stable, and the other Br minus now is going to attack on this carbon. Again, there will be anti-additions. One will be wedge, one will be dash, another will be dash, and another will be wedge. So they will again have a pair of enantiomers, addition of bromine. Now something quite critical comes in, where already the starting material itself has a symmetry, maybe a cis symmetry or a trans symmetry. So remember, in symmetrical alkenes, only in symmetrical alkenes, remember the term car and tam. Car stands for cis anti-racemic. So if your starting material is cis configuration and there is an anti-addition going on, your eventual product will be racemic. Racemic meaning mixture of enantiomers. If your starting material has a trans configuration and there is an anti-addition involved, the final product will be a meso compound. So we'll see one of both the examples. First, we'll see a cis 2-butene, an example of a cis starting material. If you can see here, this is nothing but cis 2-butene. Both the methyls are on the same side, so that is why cis 2-butene. And again, I'm reacting with bromine and dichloromethane is normally the solvent used for bromination reactions. Normally, this kind of solvent is used. So here, the bromination is going to happen by the same technique that we used earlier via the formation of bromonium ion. And again, there is, because it is bromine addition, there will be anti-addition also across the cis-2-butene. How will the anti-addition take place? One of the carbons will have a wedge Br, another will have a dash Br. You'll also have an enantiomer of this product where this carbon will have a dash and the other carbon will have a wedge. So again, this is anti-addition, and you're going to get a pair of enantiomers, which is nothing but a racemic mixture. So I started with cis, bromination, that is why anti-reaction, racemic, meaning I'm going to get an enantiomer. So this is your first kind of reaction here when your starting material itself was showing you some kind of configuration. Second example here is a little bit complex. Pay attention. Trans 2-butene. I have taken a trans 2-butene. Trans 2-butene, if you can see, one CH3 is going below, the other CH3 is going above. If this is my plane, the plane will be here. If I want to see a trans compound, the plane will be here. One CH3 is going below, other CH3 is going the opposite side. That is why it is trans 2-butene. Again, reacting with bromine and dichlorocarbon. Again, anti-addition going to happen. On one carbon you are going to get a wedge bromine, on the other carbon you are going to get a dash bromine. Now the configuration, if you can see here, if you can see the configuration, if you remember the configuration from last time, you can try and do it. You will still get 2R and 3R. I've done the numbering here. We'll still get 2R configuration, R configuration on the second carbon and R configuration on the third carbon, which is nothing but same as this compound that I've drawn here. You can again try to do the configuration here. On the second carbon we'll still get a R, on the third carbon we'll still get a R. So 2R, 3R, 2R, 3R. So these two compounds are identical. Just the form of writing them configuration wise or drawing them configuration wise is different rather, I'm sorry, but the compounds remain the same. So if you can see here, this is my product, and if I break it down from here, now I've formed a meso compound. Meso compound meaning whatever is there on the top of the plane, the same molecule is present below the plane. So this is a meso compound that I've formed. The other possibility of the same reaction is, here I have used a wedge first and a dash later. What if I have a dash first and a wedge later? So again, if you do this kind of compound, the configuration you will get is 2S and 3S. And now if I shift this bromine from a wedge to a dash, again I'm going to get 2S and 3S. Again, if you can try to solve this by both these, try to solve all these four structures by the same rules that we applied in the last semester. Count 1, 2, 3, 4. First, make sure that the fourth priority is on the dash. If it is not on the dash, bring it on the dash. So all those you can do and try to find out. You will get these same configurations. So as you can see here, when there is a trans 2-butene involved and I am brominating it, you are going to get a meso compound. Either you will get this meso compound or you will get this meso compound. So trans 2-butene gives me a meso compound. Cis 2-butene is going to give me a racemic mixture. But if you can see, this is only possible for a symmetrical alkene. This is a symmetrical alkene. If I break down from here, again, this cis two butane is symmetrical. If I break down from here, again, this trans two butane is symmetrical. This rule, car and tam, is only applicable to a symmetrical alkene. Now what I've taken is, I've taken another example of a trans 2 pentene, but this is now asymmetrical. This is trans, this is obviously trans, but it is a asymmetrical. So now when there is bromination involved, again there will be anti-addition. Same like last time, there will be a Br here, there will be a Br here. There's nothing but this is a Br. If you can't see, this is Br, this is also Br. So again, I can see here this kind of configuration I will get. But now, is this a meso compound? No, it is not. If I break it down from here, if I break it down from here, the Br will match, but the carbon won't match. There is a methyl group here, whereas there is a ethyl group here. So this is not a meso compound. Similarly, if there is a it's a dash structure. Again, if I break it down from here, this again the symmetry is lost because of the methyl groups here and the ethyl group here. So as soon as you go into asymmetrical alkenes, the rule of CAR and TAM do not take place. This CAR and TAM rule are only applicable for symmetrical alkenes. So hope you have understood the first reaction. The second reaction is addition of water to alkenes. This is acid catalyzed. So acid catalyzed water addition takes place. So H2O directly does not add. You get a mixture called as H3O plus because of the acid presence here. So H3O plus, the structure is somewhat like that. This is your alkene. I've taken one example of an alkene here. The alkene is going to act as a nucleophile because of the presence of this electron rich compound, this double bond, this pi cloud here. So this pi cloud is going to be attracted to one of the hydrogens. The bonding electrons of this hydrogen and oxygen are going to be pushed on the O of the H3O plus, due to which the first step that is going to happen is this H is going to be attacked, or this H is going to be attached to either of these carbons. It can get attached to this carbon or it can get attached to this carbon. So the first step that happens is, here I have drawn it here. Either the H gets attached to the primary carbon, then obviously the tertiary carbon develops a positive charge, or this H will attach to the tertiary carbon and the primary carbon will develop a positive charge. So these two possibilities can happen. The structure that I've drawn here is the final product. So this is the starting material. If it reacts with water in the presence of acid, this is the final product. We will see how it is reached via the mechanism. So the first step, hydrogen gets attached on the double bonded carbons. So either a tertiary carbocation or a primary carbocation. You all know the stability of carbocations. A tertiary carbocation is far more stable. That is why this reaction will only happen. This reaction won't happen. This reaction won't happen. Only a tertiary carbocation will be formed. Obviously now the water that was left, one H plus was attacked. So what is left of the molecule here is H2O. That H2O has oxygen has those two lone pairs. That oxygen is now going to be attached or attacked on this positive carbon to form this kind of complex. Again, this kind of complex, now oxygen has three valencies attached, so it has a positive charge, it's unstable. So you will take a help of another water molecule. The lone pair on the oxygen is going to pull one hydrogen away from it, leading to the formation of your OH. There's nothing but your product. And eventually the hydrogen that has been abstracted will go on this H2O and give you back your H3O plus. So you started with H3O plus, you are again you are forming your H3O plus back. So your catalyst is again reproduced. Eventually your product is also formed in the process. If you can see here, this was the product that was to be formed. Here, this is how your product is going to be formed. This is how water addition takes place over alkene. I'll take another example here. This is again a cyclobutene structure, but it has a substitution here, a methyl group here. So if you can see here, H3O plus is going to get added. This is the product that is going to be formed. So this is your starting material. This starting material, when reacted with water in the presence of acid, this is your final product. If you pay attention, ideally in the last question, if you saw, the OH was added to one of the carbons that contained the double bond. This carbon contained the double bond, your OH was attached to that carbon only in the product. If you pay attention here, the carbon-carbon double bond is here, but the oxygen is attached to this carbon. We'll see why that happens. So the first thing that is going to happen, just like always, your your proton from H3O plus is going to attack your pi electron cloud. So either it can attack this carbon or it can attack this carbon. If it attacks this carbon, like here that I have shown, you will get a positive charge here. If it attacks this carbon, you will get a positive charge here. So ideally, this will attack this carbon, the H will attack the proton, will attack this carbon, the forming a bond here, whereas the positive charge is developed here. Now, the positive charge is developed on a secondary carbon. There is already a tertiary carbon right above it. There is a tertiary carbon right above it. That tertiary carbon already has a hydrogen, which is not seen in the starting compound, but it is already present. Here, if you can see, the carbon valency is 3. One fourth valency is hidden, that is nothing but hydrogen. So the hydrogen is already present. So we already know the tertiary carbocation is far more stable than the secondary carbocation. So what's going to happen now next? Your hydride shift is going to happen. The hydrogen from this carbon is going to move on this secondary carbon. So now secondary carbon will also get a proton, and the proton from this tertiary carbon has been lost. That is why this tertiary carbon will now develop a positive charge. So now a tertiary carbocation is generated. That tertiary carbocation is going to react with a molecule of water that is left after abstraction of proton. So that water is going to be added. The oxygen is going to develop a positive charge. Another water molecule is going to come in. It is going to pull one hydrogen away from it to form the OH bond, and again regenerating your H3O plus in the process. So this is your product. The product that was shown here, we have formed the same product here. If you can concentrate, the double bonded carbon does not have the OH attached here. This is due to something called as hydride shift, tertiary carbocations being more stable than secondary and primary. We'll take another example here. I have not shown you the entire mechanism, so you can open your books and try to solve this example. Again, a cyclohexene structure, but with two additions here. Two alkyl groups are already attached, so this is making a quaternary carbon here, H3O plus. Again, the OH is attached here itself. The OH is attached on this carbon. The OH is not attached on the double bond. This is nothing, this is wrong, this is nothing here, there is just CH3 attached here. This group is nothing but CH3. So there is a CH3 coming and attacking here, but the OH is coming and attacking here. How is that possible? The hint to this reaction is, again, there is some shift involved. If not a hydride shift, there may be some other shift involved, but again a shift is involved. The fourth sum here, you can try to solve this also. I have not given you any product here. You can try solving this sum on your own and tell me what kind of product you are going to get eventually, if there is any shift involved or not. You can try to solve this. If you have any doubts, and directly contact me. Third reaction today to learn is addition of HBr to alkenes. HBr addition is nothing but hydrohalogenation, meaning addition of hydrogen and addition of halogen both across the double bond. So this is a symmetrical alkene. This is a symmetrical alkene. I'm adding HBr across it. So obviously one of the carbons will form a bond with H, the other carbon will form a bond with Br. Either this can happen, or the second thing can happen. This carbon will form a bond with Br and this carbon will form a bond with H. But if you can see, if you go with the numbering of both these compounds are exactly same. Both these compounds are nothing but 2-bromobutane. I can start numbering from here: 1, 2, 3, 4, 2-bromobutane. In this compound, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2-bromobutane. Because it is a symmetrical molecule, H and Br can be added any which way possible. Now what I've taken here is, pay attention, I've taken an unsymmetrical alkene and I'm adding HBr. So either the H can be attacked to this carbon or H can be attacked to this carbon. So let's see the first example. I have added the H to this carbon, I have added the Br to this carbon. The compound that I'm forming is 2-bromo 3-methyl butane. 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2-bromo 3-methyl butane. Or I can add the Br over here and the H over here. The compound that I now get is 2-bromo 2-methyl butane. Numbering 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2-bromo 2-methyl butane. Obviously these two are very different compounds. I have star marked this here. I have star marked this here because this is going to be my major product. This is going to be my minor product. We will see why this is major why this is minor. Because of an unsymmetrical alkene, we have to see certain rules called as Markovnikov's addition and anti-Markovnikov's addition. The easiest way to remember Markovnikov's addition is H rich gets H richer, meaning proton rich carbon gets proton richer. So whichever carbon has more protons will get even more protons. That is Markovnikov's addition. That is a nice way of remembering it, a easy way. There are few other methods, whichever you find easier, you can remember. Obviously, anti-Markovnikov is going to be the exact opposite of it. So remember one thing, Markovnikov, hydrogen rich carbon gets even more hydrogen richer, meaning of the HBr, the H is going to attack that carbon or get attached to that carbon which already has a lot of protons to it. This is just a trick to remember Markovnikov addition, but the actual chemistry behind it is this one. Say I have two carbons here, the same compound I've taken, the same compound is drawn here. Either the H can be attacked here or the H can be attacked here. Say the H is attacking on this carbon. Let us first assume the H is attacking on this carbon. If the H is attacking on this carbon, obviously the other carbon will develop a positive charge. This is a secondary carbocation. If the H is attacked on this carbon, obviously the other carbon will develop a positive charge. This is a tertiary carbocation. And obviously, you know, a tertiary carbocation is far more stable than a secondary carbocation. So ideally, this reaction is going to happen because a tertiary carbocation is more favored. So here you can see H is going added to that carbon. Now, can you tell me how many hydrogens are there on this carbon? If you can see this carbon, the one that I've highlighted right now, there are already 4 valencies. It has 0 hydrogen. And if you can see this carbon right now, this carbon has 3 valencies. It has 1 hydrogen. So as per your Markovnikov rules, hydrogen rich carbon gets hydrogen richer. So this is hydrogen rich. This has 1 hydrogen. This has 0 hydrogens. So this hydrogen rich carbon is going to form another bond with H. So another H is going to attack on this carbon, as you can see. So here your Markovnikov addition is taking place. The rule to remember is hydrogen rich proton gets hydrogen richer, but the actual chemistry behind it is the tertiary carbocation is far more stable. That is why hydrogen goes to that carbon, which leads to the formation of a tertiary carbocation, but it also gets attacked to that carbon which already was proton rich. This carbon had 1 proton, this carbon had 0 protons. So as per your Markovnikov rules, the H was attacked to this carbon. Anti-Markovnikov reactions normally are, these two are the major reactions which follow anti-Markovnikov rule. Alkene addition using alkene addition of BH3 and THF using NaOH and water. This addition reaction takes place via anti-Markovnikov rule. This also addition takes place via anti-Markovnikov rules. Here is also HBr is going to get added, but in the presence of peroxides. But in the presence of peroxides. So if there are peroxides present, the hydrogen, where will it go now? Ideally, it should go on the carbon which is proton rich, but it is going to follow anti-Markovnikov. So that hydrogen is going to go to that carbon which is not proton rich. So if can you tell me where this hydrogen will go now? This carbon has 3 valencies, so meaning it has 1 proton. This carbon now has 2 valencies, meaning it has 2 protons. So because it is anti-Markovnikov says that the hydrogen will go to that carbon which already has less number of protons. So obviously your hydrogen will be attacked on this carbon here that is highlighted. The Br will be attacked on this carbon because it is anti-Markovnikov. And almost all other addition reactions follow this Markovnikov rule. Even your addition of water also undergoes Markovnikov's rule. This is another reaction which is not there in your portion, but we'll just cover something called as halohydrin reaction. Normally, bromination, the bromine addition takes place in the presence of dichloromethane, CH2Cl2 or CH2Br2. Any dichloromethane or dibromomethane, those kinds of solvents. I've drawn here all these solvents. Dichloromethane is a polar aprotic solvent. Water is a polar protic solvent. Methanol is a polar protic solvent. Protic meaning there has to be a hydrogen that is attached to oxygen. In both the cases, water and OH, there is a hydrogen attached to O, meaning these are protic solvents. You can see here dichloromethane, there is no hydrogen attached to oxygen or a electronegative nitrogen. That is why this is a polar aprotic solvent. So once you are adding bromine across the alkene, but in the presence of a polar protic solvent, here instead of two bromine getting added, one bromine will be attacked and another OH will be attacked. This only happens because your polar protic solvent, in this case water, is extremely reactive. So that is why that also acts as an electrophile and attacks your double bond. So if you use water, OH will be added. If you use methanol, OCH3 will be added. So in this reaction, consider Br as your H and H2O as your OH. If you are considering HBr kind of reaction, if you are comparing it with HBr, your Br becomes your H, your H2O becomes your Br. So this kind of halohydrin formation can also happen. Again, this will also take place via your Markovnikov's addition only. This is not there in your portion, but it's good to remember this kind of reaction. The last reaction for today's lecture is nothing but dimerization of alkenes. It is quite simple. How can one alkene attack itself to form a complex or two or more, or addition product of two or more alkenes? I've taken an alkene here, a substituted alkene here in the presence of HF or H2SO4. These are the two products that are going to be formed. One is a major product, another is a minor product. So if you can see here, the major product is also an alkene, minor product is also an alkene. If you can see here, if you remember Sedgef rule says that that kind of alkene is preferred which is more substituted. So ideally this alkene should be preferred by a Sedgef rule because this is more substituted. This carbon has this big substitution, this carbon has two substitutions. This should be preferred according to Sedgef, but it is not being followed in this reaction. This is the minor product. The major product is something called as anti-Sedgef. So this alkene is formed which is hardly has any substitutions involved. We'll see why that happens. So the mechanism first is dimerization of alkenes. The alkene first, the pi electrons is going to be attracted towards the H plus. Where did this H plus come from? The H plus came from HF or H2SO4 that you are using the acidic medium here. Again, this H plus where will get added? Either it can get attacked on this carbon or added on this carbon. Obviously, a tertiary carbocation is favored over a primary carbocation. So this hydrogen will attack this carbon to form CH3, whereas the central carbon will now develop a positive charge. Your tertiary carbocation is ready. So that tertiary carbocation will now react with another molecule of alkene. So I've taken another second molecule of the same alkene. What I've done is I've done some rearrangement and made a nucleophile ready. This double bond will shift on this carbon. This carbon will now develop a negative charge. Because this double bond shifted on this carbon, the central carbon might develop a slight positive charge. So this nucleophilic carbon is ready. This nucleophilic carbon is now going to attack your positive of your first alkene, that tertiary carbocation that was formed. So I've drawn this addition. This nucleophile will go and attack this positive carbon center. So I've made a structure here directly, CH3, CH3, CH3C. Where did these four carbons come from? These are these four carbons. These four carbons are nothing but these four carbons. This carbon will now get attacked by a which carbon? This CH2. So this CH2 is here. Next to that CH2 is this carbon, which is this carbon. This carbon is here, the slightly positive carbon, to which there is attached two methyl groups. So this kind of intermediate is formed. If you can see, this intermediate again has a slight positive charge on one of the carbons. So now again it is unstable. So what will happen is deprotonation will happen to make it stable. Deprotonation meaning either the hydrogen will be lost, the lost hydrogen will give its electron back to the carbon, leading to the formation of alkene. So where will the proton will be lost? It has two alpha carbons here. So this is a place where hydrogen can be removed, or this is the carbon where hydrogen can be removed. As per Sedgef rule, what is going to happen? Sedgef says that that alkene is formed which is highly substituted. So ideally, according to Sedgef, this proton is going to be removed and you will get a CH double bond C kind of structure here. This is a more substituted alkene according to Sedgef. According to non-Sedgef rule, this proton will be removed and you will get an alkene here between this C and this C. As per the original reaction that we saw, the non-Sedgef product is your major product. Your SIDZF product is your minor product. The reaction being there is a lot of steric hindrance for this reaction to take place. If you can see, there is a large group attached to this carbon, there is a large group attached to this carbon. So normally, due to large steric hindrance, this SIDZF rule won't take place, and you will get a major product that says that non-SIDZF rule. This is your dimerization. So now I've formed a dimer. Dimer is nothing but two molecules of the same alkene undergoing an addition reaction. What can also happen is the carbocation, the carbocation in step 3 can add another molecule of alkene to form a polyadded product. So what can also happen is this carbocation that is formed here, this carbocation, instead of undergoing deprotonation, this carbocation, again it's positive charge, it can attack another alkene molecule, another third molecule of the same alkene that can behave as a nucleophile. The CH2 minus will come and attack here. So again, there will be another big group attached here. So that entire molecule will also develop a partial positive charge. So another alkene can come and attack here. So this reaction can keep on going, forming a poly substituted long chain dimer, tetramer, polymer kind of reaction. So this is your dimerization of alkenes. With this, we have completed these major 5 reactions: addition of bromine to alkenes, addition of water to alkenes, addition of HBr to alkenes, halohydrin addition of alkenes, and dimerization of alkenes. In addition of bromine to alkenes, the points to be remembered are syn addition, anti-addition, the CAR concept and the TAM concept, CAR concept and the TAM concept. In your addition of H2O2 alkenes, you have to remember where that OH is going to go and attack. And in the presence of your water does not add directly, the H3O plus is going to undergo the reactions. In addition of HBr to alkenes, you have to remember two things: Markovnikov's rule and anti-Markovnikov's rule. Normally, in the absence of peroxide, Markovnikov rule will take place. But when peroxides are present with bromine, with HBr, then anti-Markovnikov's reaction is going to take place. Halohydrin formation we also saw. And the last is your dimerization of alkenes, where two or more multiple alkenes can go on adding to each other via dimerization. So this was your electrophilic addition of alkenes, 5 reactions we saw today. I'm working on the other 5 or 6 reactions that are left in this chapter. With that, my entire OC portion will also be over. So I have another 2 more maybe videos to shoot. I'll shoot that in a couple of days and I'll send you across. I'll also send this PPT across. The books to refer again for this topic is again Claydon. Claydon has a sufficient amount of data. Plus, if you can refer to my PPT that I'll share, this one that I just made a video from, that is also sufficient. And Claydon also has a lot of data, so please refer to Claydon as well. Thank you.